we have a very special guest, Stefan H. Verstappen. And have I, first of all, jump on in here, Stefan. How do you correctly pronounce your last name?
You did a great job, Derek.
Okay,
That's
terrific.
Yeah.
You're the author of The Art of Urban Survival, a family, safety, and self-defense manual. I've had an opportunity to peruse it. I really enjoyed what I've seen so far. I'll definitely be checking out the rest of it soon. But I thought we could talk a little bit about your expertise in the area of urban survival and also about Psychopaths, because you are also the director of a documentary. What's the title of that documentary?
It's named after the first chapter in the book, and it's called Defense Against the Psychopath.
Right, and I caught a preview of that as well. Really interesting stuff, and something that's been on my radar for the last little while, ever since a man who shares your name, Stefan Molyneux, started talking about psychopathy and that there may be these psychopaths that are around us, and that was something that never really occurred to me. I thought that, you know, people are all born good, and you know, we talk about peaceful resistance on this show as something that anyone can do anywhere they are in their life, in their interactions with other people, to always make sure that they're engaging in voluntary interactions, that they're true to themselves and their conscience. And there are certain people who just don't have a conscience, and that presents a real problem for us peace-loving folks. So I thought maybe you could give us a breakdown. What will we find if we read your book, The Art of Urban Survival? Who is it geared for?
Well, it's geared for, you know, really a general audience, and especially people that are not part of the kind of peace movement, activist, prepper, survivalist environment. It's for the people that aren't aware of these types of subjects, because I approach it as a very low-key. It's not fear-mongering. I'm not, you know, describing any post-apocalyptic scenarios. It's actually, it's like a first aid manual. You know, I was a first aid instructor for St. John Ambulance here in Canada for years, and I really believe in those types of programs. I think everybody should have a first aid certificate and get recertified every 2 years, because you can save lives. You know, you'll be there if something happens, and it might take quite some time for an ambulance to arrive. So I'm a big proponent of having people trained in things like that. Now, the other aspect to this is crime prevention and staying safe, and what to do during a disaster. And in that field, there is very little education. I mean, there is no crime prevention course in high school. You know, there's no emergency preparedness course in college. You know, so where are you going to learn this type of information? And why should you learn it? Well, because, as we've seen in numerous examples, when a disaster strikes, or if you're becoming the victim of a crime, the cops are not there to save you, and neither is the government there to save you. They may come minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, and clean up the mess, but when a crisis strikes, an emergency, whether you're being attacked or whether you're experiencing a natural disaster or whether you're experiencing, you know, a terrorist attack, you are the person that's going to have to deal with it. You, by yourself. Nobody's coming to help you. So do you have the knowledge? Do you know what to do? And wouldn't you feel like a fool if you stood there completely helpless while things fall apart around you and people are getting hurt and they're looking towards you for guidance and leader, because, you know, you may be the head of the family, you're in charge of the office, and you don't know what to do? So the book is intended to give everybody just enough information to survive any one of 100 emergency situations, from violence to war and corruption to martial law and tornadoes and nuclear attacks. Just enough information in a very straightforward manner, not trying to scare anybody. And the information I put in this book will keep you alive for 3 days. Now, after that, if it's zombie apocalypse, well, you know, I hope you will have, you know, a little bit more under your belt by then, but I'm not addressing that now because it's sort of a different subject. I want this book to be just like a first aid manual. If there's an emergency, pull it out, hit the chapter that you need to hit, spend 10 minutes reading it, boom, you've got the information, now spring into action, get yourself safe, get your family safe, and that's all it's intended to be.
Seems like a great reference for those types of emergency situations. Yeah, oh, this is happening. Now I can go look it up real quick, check the reference, and then take action. And hopefully you've already read the book, so you're already prepared with whatever sort of step you would be taking. So have you been the victim of these natural disasters? How did this become important to you?
No, actually, I've lived a charmed life. I've always been sort of street smart. I kind of grew up in a bad neighborhood. We call it bad neighborhood here in Toronto, but it'd be like Disneyland compared to bad neighborhoods in the U.S. But you get to be a little bit street smart, and I had some training when I was younger. I was a detached street worker for a youth action project, and then I was a wilderness survival instructor for the Toronto Boys Home, which was like a group home for young men that were in trouble with the law. And my job at that time was to take them into the woods for a week at a time. We'd canoe in, we'd be far away from help. Back in the days before we had cell phones or any other way of connecting to civilization, and teach them to be self-reliant and self-sufficient. And I saw firsthand the difference that makes. Boy, if you have, it gives you such confidence to be able to do things on your own, not to always rely on an authority figure to do it for you. I mean, think for yourself, do for yourself, get the skills, and that will give you the confidence you need. We don't need everybody telling you how special you are, because that doesn't work anyways, So this book is kind of an outgrowth of that kind of experience as well.
And where can people pick up your book?
Well, it's on Amazon.com, of course, and Kindle, and Lulu.com, and Smashwords, and I think Smashwords distributes it to another half dozen outlets. I think iPod or iPad or something like that.
Right, and so the consumption of this media is typically digital. Is there a print copy, or is it strictly digital?
No, you can get print copies from Amazon, and you can also get a print copy from Lulu. I used to be able to send you an autographed print copy from myself, but the cost of mailing anything here in Canada has gone so far through the roof that it will cost twice the amount of the actual cost of the book just to mail it, so I can't do that anymore. But you can get a hard copy, and Amazon will deliver it really fast. And I kind of recommend that you have a hard copy. A digital copy is good. If you're going to get a digital copy, here's a little piece of advice. Put it on a flash drive, and and put a lot of things on that flash drive. Get a first aid manual, put that on a flash drive, and anything else you might need, and then keep that handy. And then if there's a blackout or something like that, hopefully you have an e-reader. You can plug the flash drive in and access it that way.
Now, the title is The Art of Urban Survival, a Family Safety and Self-Defense Manual. I want to ask you a little bit about your urban background and also about family. Do you have a family? When we come back, more with Stefan H. Verstappen, author of The Art of Urban Survival. Go check it out on Amazon. We'll be right back when Peace News Now returns from this trip to the free market. Welcome back to Peace News. We are live speaking with our special guest, Stefan Verstappen, who is talking about the art of urban survival, something that before this week I hadn't really given that much thought about, except it is really important. I lived in urban environments most of my life. I come from Philadelphia, and if there were a disaster there, if I'm being completely honest, I would be screwed, because I don't have what I need to prepare. Yeah, I brought some extra canned goods back to my house. Every time I went grocery shopping, I would pick up a couple of more items that have a long shelf life, just in case maybe the power goes off or I need some water, don't have access to something. I would pick up two-way communications so that I could walkie-talkie with some other neighbors if there was something nearby. Other than that, there's not much I could do. You know, if I was trying to get out of the city, I don't think I would be able to maneuver that very successfully. But maybe Stefan has some tips for me. If I were still living in Philadelphia, Stefan, maybe you could give me some guidance. What would be your first tip for me?
Well, everyone likes the idea of having lots of gear, and I think it's partly a result of our consumerist society that in order to be prepared, we need lots of gear. We need generators, we need firearms, we need 5 years supply of food and a bunker. That would be good too.
Yeah.
Maybe an armored personnel carrier to go grocery shopping in. But the
Yeah, it
truth.
never seems to be enough. I mean, once you get one thing, once you have one bug out bag, then you need a backup bug out bag, and it never ends.
Yeah, and I like gear too. Look, I'm a guy, and we like our toys. I like my machete, and I like my binoculars. But in studying history, and I consider myself something of an amateur historian, and what I've seen is that the people that kind of stock up on everything and have it all stockpiled, well, their chances of surviving aren't really that much better. First of all, they tend to make themselves a target for more ruthless predators.
Mm.
And also, there's more of a reliance on your gear. So you you think this stuff is going to save me, but the absolute ultimate survival tool is your mind and your knowledge and your awareness. Those are the tools for survival. So I think if you're smart, if you have some skills, some knowledge, and that you will survive, because a lot of times, who can predict when something is going to happen? So let's, for example, say I've got my bunker in the backyard and it's stocked with, everything you need, 50 caliber machine guns, flamethrowers, everything, and I'm at work and suddenly the lights go out at work. Well, I've got nothing at work. I can't drive home anymore because the streets are clogged and blocked, and so now I'm going to have to hoof it. So what do you do now? And probably 90% of the time you spend in your life is going to be away from your stash of survival gear.
Right.
So more important, yeah, have some stuff handy. Absolutely. Have, 3 weeks food and water. Good. Get a medical kit, a first aid kit. Just cram as much stuff into it as you can. A little bit of extra doesn't hurt, because, you're going to keep it in the house anyways. We're not going to be carrying this stuff and bugging out. Forget about bugging out. It's a myth.
Well, what does your everyday carry look like? I mean, you talk about how most of the time you're going to be away from your stash. Some folks like me, I carry a two-way radio on my person all the time, just in case. I always carry a knife.
Yeah.
I often carry a gun. I carry a flashlight in my purse. So, I mean, what sort of things do you carry with you every day?
Well, first of all, I live in Canada, and as you may or may not know, we have very strict regulations against firearms. So even if my house were broken into and half a dozen men were about to proceed to gang rape my wife, I would not be allowed to use the family shotgun. I'd have to approach them with stern language, because it's illegal to defend yourself in this country. So I can't tell you about an everyday carry. What I carry every day is I have a kit in the car, which is sort of car oriented, and especially for the north. So I have like winter clothes and boots and an extra blanket and candles, and I've got lots of tools and extra oil, gas, windshield wiper fluid, and coolant, things like that. I also do a lot of biking. I bicycle everywhere, so in my backpack I carry my bicycle repair kit. I can fix the chain, I can replace the tires. And
do you bike with that?
Oh yeah, I take that wherever I go. And inside there's also a pocket emergency kit, but more specifically for a city environment, so I don't have, fishing hooks and snare wire in there.
Yeah, but so what sort of a level of freedom does this afford you to be able to carry this backpack? Of course, it's burdensome in some respects, but tell me how free it makes you feel. Or do you feel more burdened?
No, I don't feel burdened at all. First of all, the all the equipment and everything fits into a package about the size of a, a 3x5 Altoids tin. So that's all my tools and everything fit in there. I have a knife that I use, which is mostly a tool because for fixing the bike, but on the other hand, it's also got a pretty nasty blade on it, and so if I need it as a weapon, I've been a martial artist, and I taught martial arts for 25 years. I've been doing it for 40 years. I have never had to hit anybody. I've never even had to raise my voice at anybody. So. I have a knife. Will I ever use it? I can't imagine ever using it. But on the other hand, it's there. It makes me feel a little bit better knowing it's there because I could do some serious damage with it. But I can't imagine a situation where I'd ever have to pull it. However, my bicycle repair kit, I've used that dozens of times. That's come in really handy. Like the time I was bicycling through Compton and I got a flat tire and the sun was going down.
Uh-oh.
And
well, that's not what you want. That's a horrible situation. Well, you're the kind of person who I would want instructing me about these types of survival techniques, because typically when I peruse the internet for what should I keep in my bug out bag, or what sort of gun should I buy for self-defense, it's like army drill sergeants who are making these suggestions, and they're shouting at me, and they're all excited, And you mentioned not even having to raise your voice. That's awesome, because I want to have the types of interactions with people on the street where we walk away in peace. Where I want to be peaceful in word and deed all the time, even in self-defense situations.
Let me give you an example of peaceful intervention, and this is a true story. I was 16. I'd run away from home. I went to Calgary. And I was living in the bad part of town in Calgary, and I was driving a pickup truck. And I was walking down the street. It was like a Sunday morning, and there was this really nasty guy, and he was beating the living daylights out of this woman. And there was nobody else on the street. And this guy was, you could tell he was really a street thug. Maybe he was a pimp, I don't know. And the woman was screaming, and nobody was stopping to help her or do anything. And I'm just... ready?
Yeah, you'll have to leave that story there. I want to hear the rest of that story of what happens to that poor woman. Plus, in the next segment, I'd like to get into talking about psychopaths. What are they? How can we identify them? How can we stay away from them? What do we do if we have psychopaths in our own family? What if we're dating a psychopath? We'll talk about all that and more. This is Peace News Now. Welcome back to Peace News Now. We are chatting live with the author of The Art of Urban Survival. You, of course, are always welcome to take control and ask whatever questions you may have of this guest by dialing in. 443-424-8347 is our free call-in line, and you can also dial in on Skype, as some guests are doing. We have a listener who's asking a couple of questions of our guest. We'll get into those in this segment. Plus, I want to hear the remainder of Stefan's story. Plus, let's talk about psychopaths. Stefan, welcome back. So when you last left off, you were telling us about a story that happened in an urban environment, a self-defense story. So what happened?
Okay, so and this is an example of using your mind instead of your body and your guns and things to solve a problem. So quick story short, I'm a snot-nosed kid runaway living in a bad part of town, and I come across a nasty-looking guy beating the living crap out of a woman. Now, I'm not the kind of guy that can pretend I don't see what's going on and walk away. I've been like that my whole life, and that's partly why I'm writing the book and partly why I'm going, on radio shows and talking about this, because I can't just pretend I didn't see what's going on.
Wow.
So what am I going to do? I mean, there's no way I can challenge this guy. I'm going to run up to him, and a little skinny 16-year-old, and say, "Hey, mister, leave that woman alone," or what?
But
He's
that's
going
what your insides tell you to do, right? I mean, that's
That's
what
what
your
that
conscience
was my
says.
first reaction, exactly. But I knew that wasn't going to help anything unless I wanted to get beaten up as well. So, and it's a domestic abuse situation. If the cops responded to this situation, they would send 8 guys, right?
Of course,
So
yeah, they always overreact to situations.
overreact. Oh, there's a domestic in the street. There'd be 8. There'd be 8 cop cars there, 16 guys, with guns drawn,
Oh, all
right?
their adrenaline pumping, yeah, they're ready for a
Sure.
fight, ready
So
to
here I
take
am,
down some victim.
a 16-year-old. I don't have an everyday carry. I'm not carrying anything. So it came to me, and I ran up to the guy, and I said, "Hey, mister, the guy down the street just called the cops on you." And he turned to me and he said, "Thanks, kid," and he ran off.
There you go, you saved a life. I mean, or you saved him at least a little bit.
Because there was nobody else there, and this was long before the day of cell phones, and there was no guy down the street calling the cops. And so the woman thanked me. She knew I was bluffing, and this guy took off, and he thanked me because he thought I was
Yeah, he
doing.
thought you saved him.
But what I did was I stopped the situation. I ended the violence. I didn't pull a gun. I didn't pull a heavy. I didn't have to pick up a baseball bat, because if you're smart and you can think on your feet, you will survive these things.
Right, and you don't have to be a hero. That's what I think a lot of people, when they walk around with a gun, they think, "Oh, I'm going to stop all the bad guys. I'm going to be a vigilante and be a hero." But often the heroes are more subtle in their ways, like you were, thinking on their feet and just being clever. So we've got a question from the chat room. Pang Lee asks, what do you do when a cop asks you to get out of your car, and then later brings drug dogs? They make the dogs jump and then search your car, but I guess they find nothing. And I guess this is a situation that happens to a lot of individuals. It's sort of, I would like to say it's uncommon, but it's seemingly becoming more common. Is this the type of? Do you have any advice for this questioner?
Oh, absolutely. There's a chapter in the book on how to deal with police, and it discusses situations like that. Now, this is not the time to start arguing about your liberty and your human rights. I'm sorry, I know people think that it's outrageous. I'm outraged by it. It is an abuse of their authority. It is a violation of our civic rights. But here's the thing again. I want you to survive till tomorrow. So my advice is, when you're encountering armed men, you speak softly and you comply with what they're telling you to do. What are you going to do? Make an argument? This guy's not going to argue with you. He's not a trial lawyer. He's got his job to do. He's been programmed or brainwashed to carry out these functions in exactly this order, 1, 2, and 3, and that's all he's going to do. There's no reasoning with him. There's no saying, "Listen, we're all free human beings. We should settle this peacefully." Forget about reasoning with these people. They're doing a job. They're not being human at that time. And they have guns. So if you get pulled over, the police say, "Get out of the car." Get out of the car. What choice do you have? You have no choice anyways. So the best thing to do is be humble. I know some people think that's swallowing your pride, but I refer to the great strategist Sun Tzu, who wrote in the book The Art of War. The most important thing is you do not fight battles that you cannot win. And when you are up against armed authority that have the ability to call in another 40 guys with machine guns, you think you can win that battle? You really think that your big mouth now is going to win over? No, your big mouth might get you shot. So comply. I hate to say it, but that's what you have to do now.
Well, what about recording with a video camera? Being prepared ahead of time and having a video camera or some sort of dash cam could be your saving grace.
Absolutely, and that's in the book as well, that if you think you're being harassed or you're being persecuted, then definitely carry a hidden, at least an audio recorder. Most of the MP3 players and things like that will pick up audio as well, or a cell phone or some other sort of device. But
and they don't have to be expensive. For our listeners at home, I just purchased a dash cam that was only $50 on Amazon. You know, and I'm not doing any sort of advertisement. I'm just saying that's how affordable they've become now. It's a dash cam. It does a camera forward and a camera backwards, and it's constantly recording on a loop for $50. I mean, a one-time fee could save your life.
Yeah, it's a great idea, Derek, and it's well worth the investment. It's like an insurance policy.
Yeah, oh, it's better than an insurance policy, and even sometimes real insurance companies will give you a break if you have a dash cam, so you might even want to report that to them. So let's talk about Psychopaths, because I got to see an amazing introduction that I see that you produced about psychopaths and how to identify them, and what can we do if there are psychopaths in our lives? What do we do, Stefan?
Yeah, that's it's very difficult to deal with psychopaths. Now, what I mentioned earlier about not being able to turn a blind eye to things, part of my life too is, yes, I like the survival and the outdoor stuff, but I've also been very socially conscious. And I've always wondered why so many things always go wrong in our society. And then I was researching my first book called The 36 Strategies of Ancient China. And I was doing a lot of historical research on the dynasties, the Chinese, the Japanese dynasties, and also added some, from Rome and Greece and ancient Egypt. And I started to notice that all these great leaders of history were nasty people. They were, first of all, I realized I could never be a king or an emperor because I don't have the cruelty it takes to get into that type of a position and to rule. These people were monsters. 90% of them, they murdered their parents, their brothers, their sisters, their wives, their husbands, their children.
Right. Evil people are attracted to power.
They are attracted to power, exactly. So, and then I've also been politically conscious, and so, what's the best political system? Is it a democracy? Is it a Republican constitutional democracy? Well,
Winston Churchill says that democracy is the worst form of government, accepting all the others.
Yeah, and which is a good answer, except that I would argue with that. I would think a benign dictatorship is fine.
A benign dictatorship. Let's talk about that. When Stefan returns, we're talking about psychopaths, how to identify their lies and deception, plus ways to reduce your own anger and aggression. When Peace News Now returns. Psychopaths, violent criminals. How do we protect ourselves against them? Well, recently I was attacked by a gang of thugs, ununiformed thugs. Most people, when I say that, they're thinking police, but no. I was walking down the streets and recording, as I always do, for my Truman Show-esque YouTube channel, where I record my life. And there were some people who weren't very happy that I was recording them in my frame. And they walked over to my camera and said, "Don't film me." And I said, "Well, I think it's important to film you because you're violent and I may be in danger. So I need to make sure that I continue to record me and you." And at that point, some more thugs came and approached me. I was completely surrounded, and the one thug decided to take my camera and hit it off of the tripod down to the ground so that I could no longer record. At that point, I pulled out my second backup camera, which is my cell phone, hit the live streaming app, and went live to stream what was happening to me, just in case that next camera was destroyed. At least the video would be out there, regardless of whether or not I had time to upload it. So that went out online. Then the thugs grabbed that phone, smashed that to the ground. And at that point, I was without a camera and without communication. I was stuck and surrounded by a gang of thugs. I had no idea what to do, and I didn't even know if I was able to get away safely. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? Did I do anything right?
So what happened, Derek? I want to hear the end of it.
Well, strangely enough, these thugs happened to have called the police on me before coming over to attack me. And when the police came, they didn't come to investigate a man recording. They came to investigate 2 assaults.
Oh, God. There's an article everybody should Google on the internet. It's called "The Law of Stupid."
You can't fix stupid. It's a shame, and I love to see when people who love the government they go and use the government, and then it backfires.
Yeah.
So I like private arbitration. I like peaceful mediation, and I would never have called the police on them, but they called the police essentially on themselves.
Yeah. Well, you got lucky, Derek. If you were my student, my kung fu student, and I was your sensei, I would smack you up the side of the head.
Because I should have run?
No, because you should have seen them coming and avoided it before they even saw you.
Yeah.
The thing, what I say is, if you find yourself in a situation where you're in a dark street surrounded by gang members, and you're the center of their attention, you have done 3 things wrong already. 1, you didn't see this stuff a mile away coming and just cross the street or go the other direction. 2, if you did finally see it, but it was you weren't able to avoid it, that you didn't escape immediately the situation. Back up. And 3, talk your way out of it. So. And be smart and figure out a way to get through it and say, oh yeah, okay, I'm turning it off. See this red light that's flashing? That means it's off.
Yeah, right.
Because look at what you're dealing with. Criminals are not geniuses. That's why they're on the street mugging you. If they were geniuses, they would be running the bank that's mugging you.
Right. Okay. Well, important distinction, and I appreciate your honesty with that assessment. I know I did.
I would be concerned for you, and you're lucky that time. Yeah.
I got lucky. I did a lot of things wrong. And,
if you
I
had
got lucky.
called cops, you're surrounded. Now, let's say one of them is a little bit twitchy because he just, did a line of meth, and that stuff drives people insane. They will behave irrationally.
Yes.
And now this guy suddenly gets it into his head. He wants to impress all the other gang members, so he's going to pull out his little Saturday night pocket pistol and put one in your spine, and there's Derek in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Is that worth what?
No, it's not worth anything. Not worth the video I would get. And I think that was my temptation, was like, I want this great video. I always am, as a video person, I'm always looking for that golden shot. Oh, look at the violence that's inherent in this belief system that, we use violence instead of words to solve our problems, and look how much that fails. That's what I'm always trying to aim for with my camera. And I captured that day, but at quite a cost. It could have been a much greater cost to myself.
It.
Yeah.
Well, one word for Derek: telescopic lens.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about anger and aggression and ways that we can diminish it in our own lives. You've got some words of wisdom to share on that.
Again, there's a chapter in the book on aggression, how to recognize it in other people. Well, people go through physiological changes as they become more and more angry, and you can see it in their face becoming flushed and the hair becoming erect on the back of their neck, and them starting to sweat. And
so you mean immediate changes, right? Not like angry people who are generally angry. Do they have physiological changes as well?
Well, yes, actually, you can see it. It's a little bit more subtle. There is a thing called kinesthetic intelligence, and it affects the way a person moves and behaves. And if you're aware of it, if you're sensitive to sort of body language, you can read a person's body language really well. I can tell myself, because of all the martial arts training, I'm so used to looking at people's postures and trying to read their body language, that I can tell from 40 yards what kind of a person it is, whether they're an easy mark or whether they have some self-confidence or whether they know what they're doing just by the way they walk. I know it sounds almost mystical or whatever, but It
No, it
is.
isn't. It has something to do with the way people carry their head, their posture. It
Exactly.
shows their intention.
It's
I look for that as well.
Yeah, and so angry people, it will affect their posture.
Yeah.
They will grow into the posture of anger, and with all the the kind of health problems that would cause as well. So recognize it in others, but also learn to control it in yourself. And I'm going to refer to a quote by Miyamoto Musashi, who was Japan's greatest swordsman and wrote the book called The Book of Five Rings. And he said that the angry man defeats himself in battle. So you cannot allow yourself to be angry, because when you're angry, you can't think. And as we mentioned earlier, the most important tool to any survival situation is your ability to think. So you have to control your own anger. When I look at what's going on in our society today, and the injustice, look anywhere. There's 1,000 reasons to be angry, and I am angry. But I go out every night and I do my Tai Chi and I calm down, and I enjoy nature. I live by the lake, so I look at the skyline and the trees and the water. I talk to the ducks, and I'm calm. Because you can't think straight if you're always agitated. And so peace is the way to go again. But in inner peace, right?
Yes, and do you recommend any particular exercises? Like, there were some peace activists in the 60s who used to endure high amounts of stress that they would inflict on each other to prepare themselves for situations of real stress, so that they can think clearly, so that they've had practice knowing what to do. And I can pull another story from this week where I was in a car trying to get up close to another car to read the license plates. It was a high-stress situation, and I was failing to use my two-way radio effectively because I wasn't thinking. I wasn't taking the time. I wasn't prepared with those stress exercises. What do you recommend to help people think well under stress?
Also in the book, there's a bunch of relaxation exercises. You see, the best way to do it is to train yourself through behavioral conditioning. I know it sounds terrible, but the thing about behavioral conditioning is it works. So you can use visualization and muscular relaxation techniques and deep breathing techniques, and if you combine them with sort of like a keyword or a code word and practice this a few times, it really doesn't take that long to master it, but you do have to do it. You have to practice it. And this is where people fail, because they think about it and they go, okay, no, you really have to practice it. Do it once a night for 2 weeks and you've got it mastered. And then when you feel yourself, because it works not only to control your anger, but also to control your fear, because the two are very similar in their physiological reactions. So deep breathing, relaxation, learning how to control the muscles and relax the entire body instantly, so that the shoulders drop down, and that's the best way to go.
Well, he's got more tips for you. Stefan H. Verstappen. He's the author of The Art of Urban Survival, a Family Safety and Self-Defense Manual. Go and pick it up at Amazon.com today. I'm reading my own copy, so we'll talk about it more again in the future. And Stefan, I'd love to have you on again if you would join us.
I'd love to be on, Derek. It's been great.
This is Peace News Now.